British Member of Parliament Tom Watson first revealed that News Corp reporters had hacked the phone of murdered schoolgirl Millie Dowler, an act that gave her family and police false hope that she was still alive. Tom Watson flew to Los Angeles to attend News Corp's first general meeting since the scandal broke this summer, and today he made fresh allegations against the company.
You've not told your shareholders that in the UK, the Serious Organised Crime Agency holds the hard drives of a number of these private investigators, and News Corp is potentially facing a Multimedia-Govt 2 as the victims of computer hacking begin to take civil litigation cases for illegal invasions of privacy.
Mr. Watson now joins Cory Johnson from outside the shareholders meeting in LA. Cory?
Yeah, Emily, there was real drama in there today. It was a really contentious shareholder meeting, the likes of which are rarely seen. Tom, the results of the meeting are out. You lost. All of the shareholder votes, well, we know that they lost, that the Murdoch family, that the company got what they wanted. We don't know the tally of the vote, even though the company surely knows. They're going to wait to hide that in an SEC filing.
I think that's quite unusual. I mean, we knew we were going to lose the votes when we went in this morning because Rupert Murdoch controls nearly 50% of them. But I'm sure I heard him say at the end of the meeting that the numbers would be posted within a couple of hours. So yeah. I wonder if there's been some very close results there that they're slightly embarrassed of and want to sort of move away from the AGM before there's... let's get in there.
So you knew you were going to lose. Yeah. Los Angeles is nice. We're glad to have you in our fair state, but why make the trip? Why come up here and make the noise?
I was amazed when I talked to some of the advisors to the investment managers, just how little they knew about the scale of wrongdoing in the United Kingdom. You know, the PR people at the company just want people to think this is about a minor incident of phone hacking on one newspaper.
Right.
There's actually 200 British police officers investigating News Corp UK, from allegations as wide as conspiring to pervert the course of justice to perjury to bribing public officials. So it's very, very serious, and I wanted to be there and make sure that the board were in no doubt about my serious concerns and the shareholders saw me hold them to account.
Now, when you stood up there, you'd been talking for barely a minute when they tried to cut you off right away.
Yeah, it was quite a peculiar entrance as well. When I first went in, a very burly security guard asked me if I was carrying any knives or hidden cameras.
Were you?
No, which is a bizarre question to ask a politician, a UK parliamentarian, I guess. And then throughout the course of going in, they handed me the rules of engagement on 3 different occasions. And then when I finally got to speak, a guy from the front tried to stop me halfway through. But Rupert Murdoch himself realised that would probably be a PR disaster if he didn't let me get my point out, so I did. But
well, it seemed like he wanted to go to a vote really quickly, and he finally got that after about 3 speakers. But it was clear they were didn't really want to hear from people talking, and they let him talk a little bit and then try to cut him off.
Look, the people were raising very legitimate and serious concerns, I think. You know, I'm still not convinced that what went on in the UK with, you know, terrible things like hacking the phone of a 13-year-old abducted child. I'm not sure if the regulatory arrangements of the company would prevent that happening again. And some of those reformist, independent-minded investors today raised that point very clearly.
I thought it was interesting when Rupert Murdoch talked about he suggested that there was a moral component to being a journalist, and that's why they shut down the News of the World.
Yeah, I didn't quite buy that. And of course, unfortunately, the logic of his argument is if it transpires that the phone hacking scandal touches the Times or the Sunday Times or the Sun newspaper, there'll be calls for him to close those newspapers down as well. And, you know, stranger things have happened at sea.
Well, and speaking of morals, I thought it was also interesting, there were a number of religious groups who own a lot of News Corp shares who talked about that. There was a priest from Washington, D.C. who stood up and talked about the moral component of owning a company that was doing immoral things.
It was quite difficult for the board of directors to actually deal with that question, because I think they were professionally embarrassed. And Rupert Murdoch, I think, had probably made an error of judgment when he pulled up the Church of England's investment manager and he chastised him for having a poor investment portfolio.
That was shocking. I mean, the soundbite wasn't long enough for me to use, but he kind of mumbled. The Church of England representative stands up, and Murdoch mumbled something like, "Your investment returns haven't been very good."
No, it was, he knew straight away he'd made a mistake, and he kind of withdrew from it. But
and he said, "Yeah, I won't pursue that."
It was pretty shocking.
So do you think that something good happens out of your... No, you've told all these investors here, but you knew you were going to lose the vote. As long as the share structure remains thus, it's unlikely that the shareholders, of common shareholders, will ever get any sort of standing with the company.
Look, when I went in this morning, I wasn't sure if even the board of directors were aware of the scale of wrongdoing, nor the scale of public opinion in the United Kingdom over this. I've left them in no doubt now. There's former presidents on that board. There are former chief executives and chairmen of blue chip companies in the UK, like Sir Rod Eddington. You know, they should be in no doubt that they are now individually responsible for any scandal that breaks in the UK or in any other part of the Murdoch empire, and they'll be held to account in the court of public opinion. That might not mean a lot to some of the investment managers, but I think for a company like News Corp that relies heavily on its individual brands, I think that's quite important.
Now, we cover a lot of topics on our show, which I know you watch all the time. But there are companies going public in the U.S. Zynga's going public with a dual share class structure. Groupon, which we just heard me talking about going public with a dual share class structure, which concentrates power in the case of Groupon and 3 founders, in the case of Zynga and 1 founder. That's been, some say that's a good thing for companies because it lets them do what the founder intended. Are we seeing the other side of that here with News Corp?
Yeah, look, there's clearly a degree of risk there. If you're putting your money in a company and you're not going to get your say, then you're taking a huge risk on the leadership of that company getting it right. And clearly, with News Corp, something very seriously went wrong with the corporate governance arrangements. And what's the news out of today? No change at News Corp. The status quo prevails. Rupert Murdoch remains the chairman and chief executive. And if a hacking scandal happens again, well, you know, they were told, but there's nothing anyone can do about it.
There, but for the grace of God, go other investors. Really appreciate your coming all the way across the pond and all the way across the street as well.